Hi, thanks for joining us on Access All Areas, brought to you by OPSM. We've got a very big show today with two of football's biggest names. I'm Damien Barrett, and as always on a Friday, I'm joined by four-time Premiership coach, player of the century, Lee Matthews. And Lee, I know you're still buoyant about the Hawks, despite what happened to them last week.
Well, had a really bad week last week, got thrashed, but I still think they've got the highest capabilities of any team in the competition, so I still think they may be the best team. But they've lost 4 games. I reckon you can only lose 7 to finish top. Like, you'd have to win 15 games to finish top 4. So I'm a bit worried about their win-loss ratio, but I still think they're quite possibly the best team in it still.
I'll let you battle it off with who's the biggest name in footy, because the man sitting to your right could also lay claim to that title. Kevin Sheedy, coach of GWS, he joins us today on Access All Areas. And Kevin, do you agree with Lee's comments there about the Hawks?
I picked Hawthorn to be in the grand final. I think they're playing under par, and I got a bit of a shock last week, and I'm heading off to watch Richmond tonight because we play them in a couple of weeks. So they're really in good form, the Tigers, and it's really pleasing for their fan base, because any club that's got 50,000 members after the 3 decades they've had is quite amazing. So I'm really pleased for the mighty Tigers. But in Hawthorn's case, they better get on the winning rack straight away, because all of a sudden another loss or another to just hurt you.
It's an amazing game tonight, like it's 7th versus 12th, but it's a really interesting game because Richmond look like they're on the up. St Kilda have sort of all of a sudden have been rejuvenated a little by some of the bit of outside speed cheats. The Malera, they're not kids, he's 24, Sard's 22, Jack Stevens obviously is a young guy coming through, but all of a sudden they've got a bit of speed on the outside.
Well, we let the boys go and did the deals to get the players we want on the list, both those boys.
Oh, so you had the rights to them.
Yeah, and same as young Stephen Morris. That trade was, I think we got Devon Smith, I think it was a pick 14 draft. So everybody's happy, I think, with the deals.
Yeah, win-wins all round, isn't
it?
But yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? And I think it's a great thing, isn't it, that particularly, say, Malera, that players from the next competitions are now getting chances. It used to be, if you weren't drafted an 18-year-old, you're going to be second rate. But the guys in their 20s are coming through.
Well, I think that's because in the end, it's the 2 new clubs that are in the Suns, obviously, and us, the Giants, have taken pretty much the draft the last couple of years, particularly the early selections, and it's made other clubs look elsewhere and create these opportunities. And the opportunities have been there for a long time, so you wonder how many players like a Pozzi took that long to get into. Geelong, who ended up in a premiership side at sort of 27. That's an amazing story.
And just on recycled players, Richmond's rejuvenation has been partly due to some outside help through Grigg and Maric and Basher Hooley, Kevin, a man that you know who started his career at Essendon. What have you made of those 3 guys in particular, and Basher just kicking a goal there on the vision?
Well, I mean, obviously I was disappointed. I'd left Essendon and saw him get picked up, dropped off. I don't think Essendon got a razoo for him. I think he just got picked up in the draft, and I think it was a great selection by Richmond. And because he can be a ball magnet, and he just needed more time and confidence, like a lot of players do in that sort of 18 to 21 year period. And you just don't know when that certain individual becomes the player and knows what the deal is out there on the ground, feeling comfortable with it, and being, I can take on anybody, I can take this game on and be someone.
Now, Big Maric, who's the ruckman for Richmond, and I know he's been at the Crows for 6 years, but all of a sudden he looks like a new man. That concept, they've always a bit of a myth to me that fighting for your position in the team makes you play better. I reckon once you're established in the team, that's when you can now produce. And the conveyor belt of ruckman,
it's quite amazing.
Who gets second chances, does that?
Well, we got the same person that was at Port Adelaide, Jonathan Giles. So they would have been both in Adelaide the last half a decade, and we were lucky to have him still get an opportunity to play in the ruck for us.
Yep.
And of course, both our rucks are rookies, because so was Andrew Phillips. So what we are seeing really in the last decade or so is that recruiting staff don't know how to pick ruckmen in the national draft, and they flow on. And I'm talking basically about Fremantle's giant, and obviously Cox. These sort of guys are giants, and they are rookies. Yeah. So the rookies' gold nuggets are the ruckmen.
Yep. On the midfields, both of you guys coached outstanding midfields. I'll ask you first, who's got the best midfield today? And I ask on the back of what Scott Watters said, probably in gamesmanship, about Richmond's being potentially the best. One team answer on that one, please, Sheets.
No, I think he's right. I think he's got...
That they're the best?
Well, I think they're probably just about the best coming up. If you thought to yourself, well, I wouldn't mind that midfield, you say,
Particularly next generation.
Yeah. Right now, from the next 5 years, that'd be the mob that you'd be looking at.
What if you had to take one right now? Who would it be? Take one right now for the moment today.
Cochin, he's pretty good.
Oh, sorry, which club's midfield?
Oh, I'd take this.
You still take this?
Well, it's a future.
Lee?
Well, from the future point of view, I mean, just right at the moment, I would have thought when they're all up and running, I think when Judd and Murphy were both running around fit well, I still think Carlton and you need the ruckman and you need the ground level players, and I guess Marriage has given Richmond, the balance of having some good young midfielders and a good big guy.
Judge 29, is he?
Yeah.
I'll be probably looking at a 22-year-old.
Sure.
Yeah. But where I am, I love it.
We've had a few people tweet us in at AFL_AAA and about the best midfield in the competition. And Joel has said the best midfield changes every week. Collingwood the most consistent, then Carlton, West Coast, Richmond and Essendon. And on the same topic, Dylan tweeted us about the midfield, saying the best midfield at the moment and the one with the best cohesion would have to be West Coast, with Shuey, Kerr, Pritis, Selwood, Rosa, Marston, Cox and Nick Nat. I reckon he might have exceeded his 140 characters there, Sheeds. But do you like the West Coast?
Oh, well, agree. Obviously, I mean, with Cox and Nat and Nui, I mean, we're probably talking about midfield on ball, ground level. With their two ruckmen, but how many years has Cox got to go? And Nat and Nui's probably going to be the champion of the future. And so I've got no problem with that.
Yep. You've got a couple of young captains. Some of the more older and experienced captains were a bit animated last week. We refer, of course, to St Kilda's Nick Riewoldt and Gold Coast's Gary Ablett. We just see Riewoldt here not at all happy when a ball has passed him when he felt it should have been kicked to him. Do you like seeing this as a coach?
I don't. I think to me, I wouldn't be happy with that as a captain. I mean, we saw that, for so many years with Richo and everybody buried him. And Richo's been a marvellous player, but when you're the captain, you just sort of got to just be careful about that.
Do you?
You don't want to spread that to the rest of the team.
And this vision here of Gary Ablett, first time I think we've seen that to the outside. Do you have the same?
Never worried about it with that point of view. I mean, he was trying to tell a young ruckman, I think, on the ground, this is where we need you, this is what you got to do. I mean, I don't have a problem with that.
But the Riewoldt...
Oh, I thought, kick it to me, and I mean, why didn't you see me? I mean, I wasn't sure who had the ball just then for a second, but, sometimes when you're running down the ground, you feel you're under pressure, you don't always see the right picture. And, great midfielders like this fella, they had great vision. They knew exactly where the space was. Michael Long heard they could just slot the ball probably to the best advantage of your forward line player.
You can't do much on the field now without it being picked up and scrutinised.
Oh.
That's the one thing from this.
Couple of the two biggest guys in footy going around, Steve Johnson and Buddy Franklin, both playing up the ground a little bit this year, particularly last week in Johnson's case. Are they kick chasing, Lee?
Well, I watched Johnson play last Friday night and I was just reading between the lines, but I reckon Geelong wanted to be playing more forward half, but I reckon Jono wanted to get position for stats. And I reckon that's the problem if as a permanent forward, 12 or 15 possessions, help set up some goals. But of course they can do it. That both Jono and I reckon Buddy Franklin are getting further up the field out of their forward third than even the coaches want them to.
Sure.
It's one of those coaching thin sheets. When players want the footy, they can sometimes just go chasing it.
Well, they can. I mean, look, it can be exasperating for them at times, but look, put Franklin back near goal and Johnson. That's a worry.
If you were coaching Hawthorn, would you? This debate has been raging all season. If you were coaching Hawthorn, would you have him not maybe anchored to the goal square, but certainly closer to it than he has been?
I'd have him close to the goal square.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like, where would you put Lloyd and Lucas? It didn't matter where you want them near the goals, and anywhere they can shoot 35, 40 yards out, they're pretty good shots.
Yep.
Talk about a Lloyd. I mean, Lloyd's the full forward type. In modern footy, where would you see, and he's played recent years, where would you see Matthew Lloyd being positioned in the way the team would be setting up in that regard?
Look, he would be playing a little bit more higher up the field. But, in the 5 years that I've been out of it and coming back into it, it's a good question because, he really liked to be in that zone of 35 metres and move his opponent around, and he's quite smart at doing it. God help Hudson. I wouldn't know where Peter Hudson would be. Where would he be?
On that basis, and now you've come back into coaching after being out of it for a few years. I mean, I reckon the game's changed more in 5 years than it had the previous 40. just the way, you've set up at GWS, your whole coaching operation, the way you're doing your job, the way your assistants are doing the job, must be a massive change even from when you finish at Essendon.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Well, probably in the end, the coaches that I was bringing through at Essendon were ready to go and coach, And I think that as a head coach, even at Essendon, really we were trying to develop probably the coaches that are out there. You've got Hardwick now, you've got Hurd, you've had Harvey, Dean, but we had a lot of coaches come through Essendon, and I think that to me, I didn't in the end expect to be there that long. You could say 20 years and maybe 21 years and see you later, but it just went on, and in the end, so right now, at the present time, being a head coach of Greater Western Sydney is totally different than being a head coach in Melbourne, I can assure you.
Yep. Just on yourself and talking of the structure there, you're out of contract at the end of this year, and you've always said you don't know, as you entered this year, whether you were going to want to keep the job. Yeah. 9 games in, do you want to keep the job?
Oh, I think it's an exciting challenge. I think the club and I will sit down probably in another couple of months and have a talk about it. It's an enormous period of coaching kids from 17 and a half years of age. We've got, I think, our 27th first game players in this. So it's a totally different build. It's not like coaching Essendon.
But what about you? The drive in you is always there.
Oh,
and you're as driven as anyone.
Drive's not a problem for me.
So
I've got an energy that...
If you had a choice right now, if you could sign that bit of paper and say, I'm going to coach next year, would you?
If you thought that the club was on the right track and going to do the right thing, obviously we're going to be in the bottom 4 this year, and we're going to be probably most likely next year, like, say, Gold Coast are. And it is, if everybody's on the same page and understanding of that, and that's why I think in the end, I think Gold Coast and obviously the AFL have done the right thing by Guy McKenna. I think that's the correct thing to do because, like one of the major aspects of just on a young team, and we have a celebration when they get a car licence. They can drive around Sydney and get the training. These are the sorts of things you go through, and even players, they don't have rotations in under 18s like they have in AFL. We do not have in the under 18s 135 rotations. Well, these young players are learning to when to come off the ground and those sorts of things, let alone the different styles of play in a game. Not only that you want to try and introduce as a team, but also coping with winning the ball back from 2 or 3 different styles of game in different quarters. And that's where footy's changed.
Where would you bolster your team? What type of player would be the...
I definitely think that we need to get some key backs, and we need to get probably another key forward and ruck, So it'll be in the tall man department.
Have you made approaches to those people?
Oh, I don't know. I just tell Gubby and Sauce that's what we need. And Gubby, as Lee, he's very good. He does what he does.
Where are you at with
I don't want to know about where he goes. So I didn't even... I'll be honest, I had no idea who we were going to get. I'll be involved, obviously, this year after 12 months at it and know the capabilities of the players and so forth. So the trading of the 17-year-old draft picks, the draft coming in, I'll sit down with Sauce more so this year because we're actually up there nearly 2.5 to 3 years now, and we're running around with an under-18 team in the NEFL. We're on the road. We were catching a bus down to Canberra and playing home games there. You haven't got the time to go out and recruiting. But coming up like this weekend, I can slip in and watch the Richmond game, have a look at St Kilda play for the first time this year. I'll be here in Melbourne after the Geelong game and watch the footy all on the weekend. So
you're talking like a man though who's back in the game in a very big way.
You
want to coach next year, don't you?
Well, you do because you're either in or you're out of it. Now, when you go out of it, you won't want to be out of it too long because already I've had to learn about. There's 11 new coaches in the last 2 years, right? So you've got to get to know how they operate and who their assistants are. And then there's about 350 new players since I left drafting. And I went to every draft table and basically sat in with Adrian Dodora and Noel Jokins and drafted every player. I knew everybody on the landscape. Leave it for 4 years. Wow, that's 400s or 480, 90s. You're talking about 350 players. You better get your act together quick.
Just give us a yes or no. You want to coach next year?
Oh, well, of course I would.
Great, certainly.
You wouldn't want to coach anybody who doesn't want to go. Who wants to go nowhere where no one wants to go with you, sort of thing. Yeah. So, we'll play most of the players on the list this year. We're going to every week, I should say, we change the team around. We've had probably, I would imagine it's 11 changes in the last 2 weeks, and we're very competitive up to that third quarter. And that's what we should be doing.
Yep. Where are you at with Jonathan Patton and also Jonathan Giles? In Patton's case, he's contracted for next year. He doesn't want to talk about beyond that, though. Are you confident that he'll be there long term? Jonathan Patton?
Oh, yeah. He'll come in against Richmond. Yep. We've let him know that. So he's to play on the weekend again. And it would be better for him to play against Richmond at our stadium, where it's...
That'll be his first game.
That'll be his first game. He's already been told that, and he's trained to get to there.
Yep.
We don't want to be rushing players back. Do a pre-season. He's right to come. He'll be ready to go in a couple of weeks.
Number 1 draft pick making his debut in that game. Where are you at with Goddard?
I have no idea.
Okay, fair enough. Kevin, you like this, I think. Lee Matthews is big on this, who's got the swagger and who hasn't got
What's
the swagger.
happened this week in footy? Who's the uppers and who's the downs in the team?
He's calling it the swagger and the non-stagger.
Yeah.
Fair chance the Tigers can swagger this week. I mean,
Well, they're one of the swaggerers, but my main swagger
Yeah.
is St Kilda. Because I reckon we were all thinking, up until about a week ago, St Kilda were just coming outside that premiership window. They're dropped to the middle of the list and they're not really up with the big boys. I got a feeling they have. Now, the stagger I am interested in because this might be affecting you, I reckon. I reckon it's the Suns. Because the Suns are halfway through the second year. They knew they'd be struggling their first year. But then halfway through the second year, they still haven't won a game. And all of a sudden, as much as you said the point that in the second year we're still going to be struggling, that's when the pressure and the tension around the place. And I thought what Gary Ablett did was almost just a bit of a sign. There's a bit of frustration because
sick of losing,
sick of losing. We're not up where we want to be.
Yeah, look, it's a really good point, Lee, because I mean, sooner or later, I'm not going to play my older, experienced players in the team this year. I'm not going to wait till next year. I'm not going to wait for a broken leg to my key backman, you know.
Yeah.
So I will be saying I've got to work out what game or 2 or 3 that's going to be. So I won't have 4 experienced players out there. The most experienced player probably will be maybe 1, and the others will be 12-game players.
Yep.
Or 14-game players. So, and included in that, I'm going to bring another probably 3, say, young players in playing their first or second game. Now, so I can see what you're saying here because I mean I don't want to wait for 12 months. I'm going to do it earlier.
You're probably going to go through that next year, maybe even the second and third year. That's reality, but it's still going to be hard yakka.
Look, it took me. It used to take 60 losses to win a premiership, Lee. 60 losses to try and have a crack at one. And when you add them up, that's 240. That's 11 years I drove home losing, so it's a fairly long drive.
Well, it's taken your former club a whole lot longer to get anywhere near a premiership. And I raise that because the OPSM poll, which we had last Monday, was will Ivan Maric be All-Australian by season's end? 70% of people said yes, he will. 30% said no. Yes or no, Kevin?
Big chance.
Lee?
I'm on the All-Australian selection. I'd say no. I'm the president of his fan club. I saw him last week. He's fantastic. But I think he's unlikely to be good enough to be above Cox and Natanui and players like that by the end of the year.
Lee, Kevin, thanks for joining us on Access All Areas today. On Monday, Collingwood star Scott Pendlebury will be joining Luke Darcy and myself on Access All Areas. Don't miss that one. It'll be here on afl.com.au. Enjoy the footy on the weekends. Goodbye. And Kevin, enjoy Geelong.
Have been there since 1993 as a coach.
Yeah, tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.